In today's Whiteboard Leadership moment, I want to talk to you about the service walkthrough. Now, this is a term that's not familiar to a whole bunch of churches. I know because I've been to a whole bunch of churches that don't do this, but I find this to be one of the best refining mechanisms a church can have. They've already figured out the season, they figured out the series, they figured out the service, they figured out all sorts of things, but they haven't actually done a walkthrough to make sure that the elements of the service are what they need to be. And so the goal is to practice the elements of the service ahead of time. A lot of times people don't practice these things, and it gets us in trouble when we finally actually put them together for the service. Where to do this? You do this in the auditorium, wherever the service is, because you're not just going to walk through the elements, you're going to make sure that the lighting and the sound and all the tech is there as well, and there's transitions going on the stage and coming off the stage. All those things have to be figured out, and we're trying to create this great flow from element to element in the service. How often and how long? It's 30 minutes every single week. If you're going to have a service in that week, it makes sense you'd have a service walkthrough the week you have it. You do it every single week. Everyone who's involved in the auditorium. So this would be your worship leaders, your singers, your technicians, your ushers, not your greeters because they're outside, but your ushers would probably be in it. The person speaking would be in it, or at least a representative of that person speaking has to be in the room because we want to make sure that the elements flow from piece to piece all the way through. So here's some things to do. We always started our meeting. There was a short devotion or a celebration of some sort of what God was doing, and we would spend time celebrating and reading God's Word together. We would have a written order from Planning Center Online or some other, sometimes it was just Excel, but there'd be an order of service that everyone would get. They'd have it in their hand. If it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And so here's the order. Everyone has it. Everyone can see it. So everyone can speak into it and understand it. And we would pray together after we talked through the service, and then we would walk through the service. Now, here's the thing. The pastor did not give the sermon, the whole sermon, but they did give the points, the outlines to make sure the slides are correct. All the songs were sung, and everyone looked at the slides to make sure that everything was spelled correctly and that the words were on the right lines and things like that. I don't know if you've ever been in a service where there's misspelling or the slides aren't the right ones or whatever, but it's very cringy, very cringe factor oriented, and it's a difficult thing. But if they have the right words and sing the right songs, that's a good thing in the life of a church. And so songs and slides, and we also would practice the transitions. If someone's doing announcements, we wouldn't just say, well, I'm doing announcements. We'd say, no, give us the announcements. Let us hear you give the announcements, because we could tell whether they practiced or not, whether they really knew what we were talking about, and just throwing them up there is a mistake. You want to make sure that it's fluid and the transitions are working well. And again, this gets rid of all the cringe factors of a service because it goes from item to item. I hate it when a video is on and there's no sound, or you can hear the sound and there's no video. All those things need to be practiced ahead of time. And then you have to give instruction and make hard decisions. Sometimes you have to pull things out. They simply aren't the quality you want them to be. Some songs, the band didn't do a good job preparing for it. It's a brand new song. They aren't ready to do it. We'll make sure that people love the new songs we bring to the church. So we'll actually cut a song, and people don't mind getting out early from church, believe it or not. Or it gives the pastor 5 more minutes to speak, and so he's actually speaking the length of the service, and instead of 30 minutes, he said he's going to speak. He's speaking 40. He has time to do that at this point in time. And then finally, fine-tune and finish with margin. You want to end the service walkthrough in time to open the doors of the service. You don't want people sitting in there while the band is still practicing. You don't want the 5 minutes before the service is going to be in this meeting. Give yourself enough time. The larger the time, the larger the church, the more time is necessary. But at least 15 to 20 minutes, if not 30 minutes before the service, this meeting should be over. Here's what I've found is that when people do this, when churches do this, the quality just keeps getting better and better and better. And then the experience on the weekend gets better and better. And the cringe factors are gone. And people just love a church that looks like they've worked really hard, not just the content, but the environment, preparing themselves for worship. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.